Hi everyone, welcome to the second video in this series, which cover a full end-to-end software development and delivery using Azure DevOps. This video is abstract overview of end-to-end software development and delivery using Azure DevOps. In this video, I'm not going to talk vertically about different Azure services. Instead, I will give an horizontal overview about uh, how to use Azure DevOps as an end-to-end solution. Then I will talk about different configuration and setting for the Azure DevOps settings, like organization settings, the difference between different types of user, like stakeholders, basic user, and so on. So in this video, we will see first review the series outline so we can understand and remember which content in which video. Then we will talk about the DevOps tooling and what is the capability that should exist or provided by the DevOps tool. Then we will look at how Microsoft providing a solution for the DevOps. Then we will talk about Azure Pipelines and GitHub and the integration between them and why it is so important. Then we will talk about why Azure DevOps, why we consider Azure DevOps is a great tool. After that, we will go for the demo where I will start explaining about Azure DevOps from a horizontal perspective, talking about all the services, but not going deeply in each services as this will be in different videos. Then talking about different setting for Azure DevOps services. But first, let me give you a quick overview about myself and my background. My name is Mohammed Radwan. I'm a Developer Technologies MVP and Principal DevOps. So I have been doing software development for more than 15 years now. I worked with many projects, helped many customers, heavily participated in the community, worked in many countries for different projects. It's very important to review the content of the series, so we can understand what is the content of each video, because this will help to understand where you are and where the videos that you can find to cover the topics that you are interested more. So this part will be repeated in each video. The more questions you ask, the more we all learn. So I will encourage you, don't hesitate. If you have a comment or question, please leave it in the comment of the video, because this will raise the discussion which will bring more values for everyone. The first video is introduction and high-level overview of DevOps. DevOps is a big topic and it will require very long time to speak about the DevOps. But in this video, I'm going to give a very high overview to make sure that everyone on the same page and ready for the rest of the series. So for example, I will give some of the metrics for measuring high performance DevOps companies, giving some example of the high performance DevOps companies, start talking about a quick overview about continuous integration, continuous deployment, talking about continuous delivery principles, which will be very important so the rest of the series will make more sense to you. In the second view, abstract overview of end-to-end software development and delivery using Azure DevOps. In the third video, I'm going to talk about Agile and Scrum planning using Azure Boards. In this video, we are going to see how to manage project. So for example, manage requirement, prioritize the backlog, manage the sprint, the starting date, the ending date, capacity planning, cumulative flow diagram, and different topics of Agile and Scrum using Azure Boards. In the fourth video, managing source code with Git using Azure Repos, we will see different usage of Git with Azure Repos. For example, how to create new repo, how to clone the repo, creating branch, merging code, setting branch policies, pull request, and so on. In the fifth video, build automation and continuous integration using Azure Pipelines, we will see how to build a pipeline for the build automation, compiling the code, running the unit test using the visual tasks or the YAML. In the sixth video, we are going to see managing artifact repositories like NuGet, npm, Maven using Azure Artifacts. We will see how to use the artifact to manage our third-party libraries for different technology. In the seventh video, release management and continuous deployment using Azure Pipelines, we are going to see release management, how to build a different environment, talking about the pre and post deployment, managing configuration, and the release gates, so different topic for release management. And the eighth video and the last is test planning with manual testing and exploratory testing using Azure Test Plans. In this video, we are going to explain how to verify the application. We will run exploratory testing, create test case, execute test case using test runners, test configuration, and so on. DevOps tooling. DevOps needs a full software development lifecycle because we would like tools to cover all the software development. So it includes the planning, cover all the planning capabilities, and then the development has supporting modern development capabilities like version control, continuous integration, and testing, continuous deployment, and also release, so I can release to multiple staging environment, then monitor the application and learning from monitoring the application in production. For the plan and the track, it starts with an idea that I want to transform into reality. And this starts by listing my ideas as a requirement or product backlog items in the backlog. Then I start refine these items, prioritize them, and start managing the work across the teams, planning for the project, and tracking the progress of my project. Then moving to the development and testing, where the developer start writing code to develop the requirement and transform them into feature, and the tester will start verifying that the development features meet the requirements. So the developer will start writing code, write unit testing, put source code under version control, start the continuous integration and running the build automation, and then the tester start build verification and testing the feature of the application. Once the development completed and all tests passed, we want to deploy or release our application to different staging or environments. So for example, we will deploy our application to testing environment where we will run accepted automated testing, then promoting that to the next stage where we can run integration tests, then promoting to the next one where it's a pre-production where we can include part of the pipeline cloud load testing, then moving to production. After that, monitor and learn, where I can start monitor my application in production so I can understand how the application is performed, maybe track any issues so I can be proactive, and also understand how the end user using the application and providing this feedback very quickly so I can put them as an ideas in the backlog again and start developing the next version and so on. So how Microsoft providing solution to cover the software development lifecycle in this way? Microsoft providing three main components so we can have innovation at a scale with confidence. So we have the first component is develop. So we're using GitHub, Visual Studio Code, and the second component for how to operate, which we're using Azure Monitor, Policy Automation, Security Center, and the third component is deliver, where I will use Azure Boards, Repos, Pipeline, Artifact, Test Plans, and Lab Services. So when we look at Azure DevOps, it consists of Azure Boards, Azure Repos, Azure Pipelines, Azure Artifact, and Azure Test Plans. So when we look at Azure Boards, it's all about deliver value to our user using proven agile tools. So it supports sprint planning, capacity planning, Scrum, Board, and all these capabilities. Azure Pipeline, it supports building the continuous integration and continuous delivery pipeline, work with any language, any platform. It supports also to work with GitHub, Azure Repos, this providing unlimited cloud host private Git repo and supporting pull request and advanced file management. Azure Test Plan, where we start testing and verify the application and have traceability back to the requirement. Azure Artifacts, where we will start storing our packaging for our CI and CD. So for the plan and the track, I will use Azure Boards. So the Azure port will provide the capability to connecting the idea to the release because I will have the capability to track the requirement, the code, the build and deployment, and even monitor in production. It is Scrum ready because I will have Kanban board, Scrum board, sprint planning, cumulative flow diagram, so different capability of the Scrum. It integrated with GitHub. If I don't want to work with Azure Repos, I can just using Azure Port to integrate with GitHub. It's also providing insights to track the progress and building a comprehensive and rich reporting with a rich dashboard. For the development and test, we will using the Azure Repos for the source code and Azure Pipeline for build and running the continuous integration and Azure Test Plan for build verification or the testing. So for Azure Repos, it supports different source control. So it supports Git, private Git, and support TFS-BC. Also, it supports pull request, where I can also set some branch policies where it integrated with continuous integration. So for example, when I raise the pull request, this will trigger the continuous integration. So this can make sure that before the pull request can merge, that the continuous integration runs successfully. It supports easy migration to and from GitHub and other Git provider as well. So Azure Pipeline deployed to on-premises or any cloud solutions, also or hybrid cloud and on-premises. I can use it to build a different staging environment and it supports pre and post deployment approval. It supports release gate where I can automate the approval as well. Azure Test Plan, it supports to create test case, to execute test cases, and have traceability between the test result and the requirement. Also, it supports running exploratory testing without any test case, so I can run the exploratory testing directly from the browser and then creating test cases based on the running session from the exploratory testing, so I can verify the fixing of the bug later. And for the release, we will using Azure Artifacts and Azure Pipeline. For Azure Artifacts, it supports different packages like Maven, npm, NuGet, and it aggregates from public and internal registries. Also, I can publish and track from any pipelines. The Azure Pipelines for the deployment or release management, it will be the same. And for the monitor and the feedback, we're using Azure Monitor and other Azure tools, and also Azure Boards where I bring the feedback and the monitor to the Azure board to be displayed on the dashboard as well. So I will monitor my application, monitor the security and the infrastructure and the network. So it is not only that I monitor the performance, but I can monitor these main three components. So Azure DevOps is better together. It's a full end-to-end solution for organization looking for an enterprise tool chain. So it's a fully integrated with an end-to-end traceability, starting from requirement up to monitor in production. It is very scalable, so it supports small team up to all the team for enterprise. It's high available because it has many region for cloud, and it has customer support, and it has consistent admin and access control. And if we don't want to work with them together, we still can work with other tools. So for example, we can take Jenkins to work with Azure Repo. So our source code will be on Azure Repos and our pipeline will be using Jenkins. We can work with Azure Pod and GitHub, for example, or Azure Pipeline and GitHub. So we can combine different services. evidence transaction with a full end-to-end traceability. But why we prefer Azure DevOps together? Because once I have the requirement and I start development and testing, with the QA start building test case from the beginning, shift left, and at the same time the developer start writing the code. And I have traceability between requirement and test case and the source code. And this source code, we have a build, and this build is linked to the source code, and the requirement is linked to the build. So I can understand that this build has, for example, this requirement completed in this build, that this bug is fixed in this build. Once the build completed the artifact, I can track that this package has the following build. And the test plan, including the test case, which has the traceability to the test plan, and I can also have the traceability to which build. And by running the test cases, we have the test run and the test result, which will be linked again to the test plan and the build. So I can understand that this build run these test cases, 100 test cases, and the 100 test cases, some of them pass, some of them fail. So the test result for that build, so I can understand the quality of the build. I can also have this test result linked to the bug, so I can have track, and this bug will be tracked to the requirement, and the test result as well, the same will be tracked to the build, so I can understand that this build has this bug. Then the release picks this package, so I can understand which package the release used. Then the environment, I can trace which environment has which release and has which build and has which requirement. And this is not only the traceability I have, because if I want to draw the traceability, I will run it as a many-to-many. So the main idea, we can have a full end-to-end traceability between different artifacts in the software development lifecycle. And this is why we prefer to using Azure DevOps. This is why if you're using other tool, which we will have a disconnected tools and the process. As I explained, some other companies are using different tools, and what's usually happen that using these different tools, they are disconnected, which disconnected your process as well. This is why I keep saying don't build boundaries across your software development life cycles. Because once you build these boundaries, you will have a disconnected tools and the process, which will require more time to reinvent the wheel, which is already exists by Azure DevOps. So instead of having disconnected tools and the process, remove that and using one platform for the complete software development lifecycle. It's a very powerful integration between Azure Pipelines and GitHub. GitHub is the first developer community on the planet. It has 1 billion contributions in 2018. It has 33 million developers and 100 million repos. And it is the home for the most important and popular open source projects like Kubernetes, Ansible, NPM, Visual Studio Code, React, and many others. It's very easy to configure the Azure pipeline from GitHub. So if we go for the marketplace on GitHub and we starting set up the Azure pipelines. Microsoft give free unlimited build minutes for public project and open source, and up to 10 free parallel job across Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, which is really great for open source. At the end, Azure DevOps is providing a very high capabilities as a full end-to-end solution for software development lifecycle. Why Azure DevOps? Microsoft heavily invest in Azure DevOps. It is considered as the best class CI/CD solutions across the industry. The managing the planning is considered as a very powerful solutions. Very tight integration with GitHub provide enterprise scalable package management. Azure DevOps supports small teams start from 2 or 3 and it's free up to 5 users and implemented and used by many enterprise. from sometimes Microsoft using the concept of dogfooding or they using their own tools. So Microsoft internally, they using Azure DevOps with over 100,000 engineers inside Microsoft using Azure DevOps. And Azure DevOps team, they usually proud to say we're using Azure DevOps to build the next version of Azure DevOps. So all the requirements on Azure port, their pipeline, on Azure pipeline, the test plans they're using to build the test verification. In the demo, I will show you some of the roadmap which is exist on a public project on Azure DevOps. I mean the roadmap for Azure DevOps exists on a public project on Azure DevOps. When we look at the following statistics, they have 82,000 deployment per day, 22 key work items created every day, 12,000 employees contributing to open source, 4.6 million builds per month, 3.5 thousand open source repos, 442K pull request per month, and 2.4 million private Git commit per month. As we can see, Microsoft heavily invest in Azure DevOps because they are really using it internally. Even they are early adopter for their products. For example, Azure DevOps teams, they using the feature before they releasing that to the end user. So the canary release, also because I'm part of the internal group with the MVP, so we have exposed to the feature very early and we're using that. So it is really a great product. When we look at some of also real story about pull request and tooling, so we can see that this is a real pipeline using Azure DevOps and building Azure DevOps. So we can see here from the number, they running 60,000 tests in each build and they took 30 minutes in each build. And this is in memory test. They have 120 builds per day. Again, the number of the build in the previous, it was all Microsoft products, but here for Azure DevOps. So this is why 120 builds per day. And they run 518 tests executed in 8 minutes, and this is 3,260 tests executed in 75 minutes. This is for the acceptance test. So as we can see, this is huge implementation of Azure DevOps. This is why they fix the problem very early. They adopting their solutions, they monitor the solution, and they get the feedback very early, and they fixing them even by being so proactive. This is a real pipeline inside Microsoft for a real product internally. Azure DevOps has many more global regions than any other providers. So let's look at the demo. In the first demo, I will talk about general and organization settings. So let's see. So first, let's navigate to dev.azure.com. So this will load the last organization and project I was working with. So I will start by creating new organization. This is a unique organization. So I will put here end to end demo 100. And here I will choose the region where I want to put my organization. Here just for text. So just think of organization as a container for many projects. So I created to hold my projects. So as we can see, I need to provide the name for my project. But first, let's go for the advanced to see what we have here. So here I will choose which type of version control. I have Git and TFS VC. So I will leave it with Git. With process template, we have 4 types. And to just give a quick overview, the types of the process template defines the types of the work items in each process template. For example, we may find more work items type in one process template from the other one. Let's create all of them and we see different. So here I will create my Agile. And here we have a private and public. So private, this is the default. Only people that I give them access to this project. And of course, this should either be a Microsoft account or Azure AD account. So they need Office 365 or Azure AD account or Microsoft account. I can add them with license maybe as a basic users or Visual Studio or stakeholders. But the public, it means anyone on the internet can access that. It doesn't require even authentication because you can access a project anonymously. We will see example of that. So let's create this as a private. So now my project created. So let's navigate again to the organization level, not on the project level, and create a new project. I will say my Scrum will be the same, but using Scrum process template. Then again, create another project called my CMMI, and I will choose CMMI process template. So now, as we can see, we have 3 projects in our organization, and each project has different process templates. So let's see first what is the difference between the process template as a quick overview. So to just let's open 2 projects. And to give a quick overview, if I come here and go for the work items, the same here for work items. So we can see here in the work item, we have many work item types. If we go here for the Scrum, we have less types of work items. Even if we talk about one work item like task, we have task here and we have task here, but even the fields are different. So for example, if we open the task here, we can see in the CMI, it has original estimation, remaining work, completed work, but the task in the Scrum, it just including the remaining work. It doesn't include original or estimation because the Scrum process template is a very lightweight process template, while the CMI is very comprehensive. We can also see that, for example, if we go for work item change request, which is not exist at all in the Scrum process template. We can see this how it's a comprehensive work item, like impact on architecture, impact on user experience. This is when I want to raise a change request. So as a quick definition, the different process types means different work item types, different fields, different workflow to track the projects. This is on organization level. So if I go for the organization settings now, we can see now that I can change here the owner. I can also delete the organization. If I go for projects, here it will list all the projects I have in this organization, and I can create new team project from here. I can also use here to delete project or rename project. And remember, when I will rename the project, this will affect all people because they may have some links, or this is why it will give me warning about that. As we now understand the level of the architecture of the data inside Azure DevOps, we have projects and we have organization. There was a new suggested levels which called an enterprise, and this was even on the Azure DevOps Roadmap to group many organizations under one entity called enterprise. So I will show you that this is Azure DevOps Roadmap, and this is public project. This is a very good example for public project, but maybe you can see like maybe I have access to that. To show you that it doesn't matter, I will open a new browser with no login and access a project. So as you can see, I can access the project without any authentication. So here I am completely anonymous and access this project. And this project is a very good example for a public project. And on the other hand, it is how Microsoft Azure DevOps team, they're using Azure DevOps to expose their roadmap for the public so they can get feedback or they can share the information. And also to see that the Azure DevOps team was having a plan to bring multiple organizations under one entity called an enterprise. But this requirement has been cut, as we can see, and replaced by another one, which is pay for user once per user across organization under the same Azure subscription. So they changing that now. So user across organization, and this is the new requirement. And as we can see now, it's planned. So they are working on that, but they didn't start working on that. So we can see that. To get back now to our settings, if I go for users, here I can see all the users. Here I can add users and give them the license. And we can see here how many basic users I have, how many stakeholders, and the Visual Studio subscription. And when I add user, I usually adding here by email. If I know the email and choose the user type. And what is the difference between them? Basic, that they don't need a Visual Studio subscription and they have most of the functionality of using Azure DevOps. Stakeholders is a free. You don't pay anything for stakeholders, but they have limited capabilities because they are free. And Visual Studio subscription, when they have a Visual Studio, then they can have access to Azure DevOps. And here, as we can see, we can understand the number of users. And it's important to remember that Azure DevOps is free up to 5 users and up to 5 basic users. But as we can see that I don't have any basic because my license is Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. Here also I can see the license for the package management. So if I go for the billing, I can understand more about the basic user, 5 for free, as we can see. I have no paid. Also, I can see the test manager users and package management user if I want to pay all of that. Once I go for the usage, this is like a log file with which account access which service and which time. So I can, and of course I can filter, I can search per user. So this is like a log for accessing. For extension here, I will manage the installed extensions. And here, of course, for requesting, when people requesting to install extension, Azure Active Directory, where I can connect my Azure DevOps to the Active Directory on Azure. And if I click connect here, it will list me all my Azure Active Directory, and I can connect that. If I go for policies here, we can enable or disable policies. For example, allow public projects. So if I say off, then whenever I will create a new project, it will not give an option for people to create a public project on this organization level. Here, permission on the organization level, I can create new group and add users to this group and start to give them permission across all the organization. When I go for process, here when we can manage the process template, I can, for example, customize the process, create inheritance process. So for example, I can create new team project from here. Usually I'm not doing that. I can create inheritance process. An inherited process, once I create it, I start customizing that and applying this process to many projects. I can also change the team project to use Agile. For example, if I have any Agile project and this customized with specific customization, and I can apply this customization for multiple projects. And here it will have the list of projects and I can apply them. I can disable the process template. So when anyone on the organization try to create project, this process will not be available. I can also set as a default to process. So when we create a new project, it will by default select the Agile or this process template. If I go for the agent pool, this will manage the build. So here the default, which usually is self-hosted agent. I can create new agent pool, and this agent pool will be on the organization level. And as we can see, this will create an agent pool on all projects. So because I have two levels of agent pool on the organization level and on the project level. So for example, the default agent pool, it has no self-hosted agent. And here the Microsoft hosted agent. Here for Mac OS, here for Ubuntu and Visual Studio 2017 and so on. Retention and parallel jobs. This is a retention policy for the build, how long it will keep the build. So for example, the days to keep the build and minimum to keep and so on. And for the parallel jobs, this will manage and understand the parallel job for the build. For example, we can see that I have free tier, one parallel job up to 1,800 minutes per month. And we can see that currently I use 0, so because I didn't use any of them in my account. For the self-hosted, which usually is hosted on premises or maybe hosted on the cloud, it's not software as a service. We can see that I have two parallel jobs, one because for free and one because my Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. And I have no monthly purchase. And public project, I have 10 parallel jobs for free and self-hosted unlimited. So as we can see here, we can manage the parallel jobs for the complete organization. So this was a quick overview about organization settings. The second demo, we will see an overview for each Azure DevOps services and project settings. So let's see that. So if I open dev.azure.com, then this my organization end-to-end demo 100. Let's go for my Scrum project. So if we start, see this is the main services overview and all the other services. I can work with one or more services. So for example, if I go for project settings, here I can disable the services that I'm not going to use it. For example, if I'm going to work with Azure Boards, with GitHub, then I don't need Azure Repos, for example, so I will disable that. Let's say, for example, I will use Jenkins, so I will not use the Azure pipeline. So once I have that and I refresh my project, we will see that I don't have this service anymore. So here I will enable and disable the services that I will only use. So let's bring them again. So here the main overview. If I go for teams, here where I add more teams. So for example, I can add team 2. And we can see that the bold team is the default team. And the main idea of adding more teams is to manage multiple teams under one project. And there is a trend for managing project which called portfolio management, which is instead of creating many team projects under one organization, is to create only one team project with many teams and start to structure this team in a very good hierarchy where I can build my organization with team structure. But this is another way for portfolio management where I can build cross relationship between work item source control because they are in the same team project within the same organization. So if I go for security, this will cover different teams and different groups, and then of course I can go for members, adding other teams or groups and manage security. Here for notification, this is just for alert where I can set up, for example, build complete. When the build complete, it will send email to notify people. I can disable or enable or changing the subscription. Service hooks, this like a callback usually. So it just linking the Azure DevOps project with other services. For example, let's say, for example, if I want to link a Slack channel and then so when build complete, for example, and the build is succeeded, I want here I will put the URL for the webhook from the Slack settings, and then once the build completed successfully, this will post to the Slack channel. So everyone on the Slack channel will be notified about the build success when they click on that. If they log in using Azure AD, they have Office 365, then they will automatically navigate it to the build and they can review the build. So it's all about linking the Azure DevOps with third-party services. When I go for dashboard, this is like managing the permission for delete, create dashboards. Project configuration. This is the sprint. I can set the date for the sprint. I can also manage the hierarchy. For example, if I say new child here, I put release 1. And then in a sprint, I will just, let's say that release 1 has 2 sprints. When I go for team configuration, where I set if I want, for example, to enable epics or not, because let's say if I open the project and we go for the work items, if I go for the board as view as a backlog, because if I want, for example, here to see, we can see feature and backlog. So if I create feature, I can create new feature. If I want to create a backlog item, I can create a product backlog item, but I can't create epic. But once I enable epic, this will give me an option to create an epic as well, and which is more hierarchy in the product backlog item. Also here to configure how I work with bug. If I want to bug as a requirement, it means it will appear on the Kanban board. If I work with bug as a task, it will appear on the task or the Scrum board. GitHub connection, this is where I connect Azure Boards with GitHub. Service connection is the endpoint that will connect to usually using with the Azure pipeline. So for example, if I want to connect to my Azure subscription, so I can deploy to a VM on my Azure subscription, then I will put the connection from here. Of course, I can click to add the connection from the Azure pipeline, but it will end to adding the connection here. Because for example, if I create new, as we can see, we have here, I will start adding Azure Resource Manager. The agent pool, it is the same as managing the agent pool for the build. And as we remember, we have organization agent pool and we have project agent pool. This is why when I add a pool, it will ask me if it's existing. It means that using an existing organization pool. This is the same for retention and parallel jobs. Repositories, where I can manage all the repository in this project. This is the retention for the test, for how long it will keep the automated test run. So this is a very quick for project settings. So if we go from the start, we will see that the project is empty. Wiki, port, we don't have any data. And the best option to see the project is with data. So let's have a project with data. Microsoft has a very good project called, if we say Azure DevOps Demo Generator, then we go for this. Once we sign in, I will select the organization, so end to end. Here I will choose the template. So I have here many project templates. The main idea here is just this is a fiction. The project which has a backlog, test cases, source code, so we can see Azure DevOps with some data. My shuttle, this is like Uber application. My health clinic, this is like a clinic where it manages many patients and doctors and booking for doctor appointment. Parts Unlimited, this is an e-commerce for car parts. So let's take this one. Now I will name my project. So let's say demo project. And this is my organization. So this will create the project with and create product backlog items, test cases, source code, all the resources and artifacts that we need to start navigate and work with Azure DevOps so we can see how we can work with it. So now as we can see the project is created and created all these artifacts. Two teams, port columns, swim lanes, work items created, build definition and release definition. So let's navigate to the project. So this is the status page, the home page, the summary page here. And as we can see here, a very useful information like, for example, how many work items created, work items completed, 24, how many pull requests are open, and how many commits by how many authors. So if I look for the dashboard, we can see that I have here now a dashboard where it has some useful data, and I can go for edit, then start adding new widget. So I'm going for Wiki. This is the Wiki as we can see here. Okay, features, which doesn't look a very good Wiki for me. Let me show you very quick a very good Wiki. If I say VS Code GitHub, if I open the Visual Studio Code on GitHub, just if I go here, this is the README, and go for row. Let's take that, and I will start to create a new sub page. So as we can see here, now I have this page using the markdown. And as we can see, it's very easy. Let's say for contribution, markdown is very easy. So here, for example, using the heading, I can also create, for example, add subpage. And moving this page from here to here, so it will be, and here will check affected links, so I can fix them. And also in the page, I can reference people by using at, or reference work item by using. So for example, if I say I want to reference that, so this will be a link, so I can open that. To just show you that, if I save, if I click that, this will open the work items. If I click here, this will navigate to this user, so I can link to in my documentation to user and work items. I can also create wiki with another way from the source code. So because we usually, as the Visual Studio Code, for example, on GitHub, it has the README and I want to publish the wiki from the README. So for example, if I go for repos here, we can see here we have this README file. And I want to publish my wiki. And in order to do that, I will just go for wiki, then click here, publish code as wiki. Then I will navigate to where my markdown file here, select that, and here my docs. So this will publish, and as we can see, now we have all the documents has. Let's go now for Azure Boards. So as we can see in Azure Boards, we can see this is the work items. If we go for boards, we can see here this will open the campaign board where I can see the state of the user story or the product backlog item. I can move this to here from this example, moving that from here to here. I can here changing to be assigned to me, for example. I can look at the velocity or the cumulative flow diagram. And of course, I can look at that as a backlog, which will navigate here to this backlog. And as we can see all the requirement. I can see how many sprint we're running. I can drag and drop items to which sprint I want to finish the work. I can prioritize the item by drag and drop. Which will change the order. I can also open here from here, for example. If I open the parent, this will show me which parent this PPI belongs to and which unparent. And if I open, for example, the mapping, I can drag and drop here to link the child PPI to which parent feature. And of course, this can be the same with the feature. If I open the feature and enable mapping with epic, so I can drag and drop the feature to which epic. So we have control of that. If I go for the sprint, this will display the Scrum or the task board where I have vertically all the user stories or the product backlog items that's assigned to the current sprint and all the tasks that associated with this user stories, and of course assigned to the same sprint or the current sprint. And we can move from here to here, for example. Here queries to just retrieve information. So let's have a new query with all data and just run this query. This will retrieve all the data, including test cases, epic, because it's all the type of work items. So this is the Azure Boards. If you go for Azure Repos, as we can see this, we can see our source code. We can see which branch. Here's a master branch. I can also from here create new repository or import repository. And when I import, I can import from GitHub, from GitLab or Bitbucket, for example. It's up to 180 days. Here I go for the comments and I can see the map and the users. Here to display the branches, the tags. Here all the pull requests. So here I can see all the pull requests because here in mine, so created by me, to assigned by me. The active, because we have 2 open pull requests completed. I don't have, or appended, I don't have. I can open the pull request from here, starting approve or reject this pull request and complete the merge. So there's many features which we will go again for each services in different videos later. If I go for the pipeline, we can see that we have now the pipeline here. If I go for edit, we can see all the tasks for this pipeline. I can add another task. I have many tasks. And as we can see here, to restore the NuGet package, here to build the solution, here to run unit testing, then copy the file, publish the artifacts. I can add another task. Let's say, for example, code analysis. But this is not installed, so I can first get it to install it and then start adding the code analysis, which will make a static analysis to check for the code quality during the build. To just give an example, let's say, for example, add a task, say delete. So I have delete files here. Let's say that I want to delete after publishing the artifact, I want to delete some files. Then I will go here, giving the source folder for the folder that I want to delete. Just an example for adding task, and when I kick this build, it will execute. Also, I can view the YAML of this task. Let's save this one. And let's create a new pipeline. As we can see, the default now is YAML, but I can use the classic editor, which is the visual from here. So let's select the YAML file, and here's the repo I want to store my YAML file and the YAML template. This is my YAML template. By using YAML, it means that I will use configuration as code, and then this file will be under source control instead of using the visual designer. So this is a pipeline. So let's go for the release. So if I go for the release and start looking at the environment, you can see that we have dev, QA, production, and if I start open for the task, this is where it will connect to Azure App Services, where it will deploy the application. This is just for managing more reusability for build and release management. For the test plan, here where I will have all my tests. As we can see, this is a test suite. Here is the test cases. So if I open the test case, I can see the test case. And of course, I can click and start run for the application, which will execute the test runner. And then following these steps and say pass or fail, then create bug, save and close the session and link that. Again, we will see all the details of each services in a separate module and video. And here for artifacts, where I will manage the repository for the artifacts. And this is very good for because we can either publish our main components that we develop that will be used by other teams. For example, if we develop a microservices, then we will publish our services to here so it can be used by other teams, or this will control the third-party libraries so we can have more security about the vulnerability for any open source or any issue with license. So instead of our project is working with a public FIDS, it will working with our FIDS so we can have managing the security and the license. So for example, if I start create new FID, let's say my FIDs. Once I create this FID and start connecting to FID, as we can see, it's supported NuGet, npm, Maven, and Python. I start downloading, for example, let's say NUnit framework. Then once I install it, that it will be cached by the FID. This is the URL for the FID, so they can restore the package from this FID only. So I can manage which package used by which team. If this package, for example, has security issue, then I will not include it and so on. So this is a quick overview about all the services. At the end, I would like to thank you for watching the video. Please, if you have any question or comment, don't hesitate to ask or leave your comment at the end of the video. And you can visit the blog by the links that will appear on the screen or created on any video that related to this topic, which will appear on the screen as well. Thank you.